Hi, and welcome to another session. So we've been working on qingling, keeping the body light and agile. It implies both in the body and in the mind. And we want to continue that. On Tuesday, we worked with keeping the arms light and having the movement go through the whole body. I want to look at how that applies to the legs as well. So let's start with the first third and just try to notice how your attitude toward your body changes whether it feels heavy or light and agile. The thing about heavy, yeah, sure, you want to be rooted, but you don't want to be ponderous. You don't want to get stuck in the heaviness. You want to also have some levity, something that comes back up, and have the whole body involved in your movements. That's the really critical piece that we're looking for here, is how to keep your body involved in all your motions. So as we go through the first third, notice how everything moves through your legs as well as your arms, your torso, the whole body. And begin. So one thing about stepping, say, in Tai Chi, is that it's easy to think about the foot as being the thing that steps. So, you get yourself ready for the big step in single whip, and you put your foot out. And you see how if I just focus my foot, the whole leg is stiff and moves as a block. And the knee in particular, I've got kind of baggy pants on, but when I move my foot, you can see that the knee is kind of pulled back. Instead, we want to make the movements go through the body and play out to the foot, just like the movements go through the body and play out to your hands. It's harder with your feet because there's weight in your feet. So I want to just get a little bit of awareness of this. Walk around a little bit. Just take a little walk wherever you're practicing. You can just walk around and notice how walking can change depending on how you think about what you're doing. So one thing that can happen is you can walk by putting one foot in front of the other. So go ahead and put one foot out and then the other foot. And notice how when your focus is just moving your feet, it doesn't really play out through your whole body. So there's a sense that your legs come all the way up to a place under the solar plexus. We could get into the anatomy. There you've got a psoas, this iliopsoas muscle group that makes its way all the way up to your diaphragm. You can also just try to experience it by feeling your legs start all the way up there, not just at your hips, because when you walk just from your hips, that also doesn't let it go through the whole body. So instead, feel like you've got these really long legs that come all the way up, and they're like your torso's a bell and your legs are the clapper. And as you move, the whole torso and leg is involved. The foot is the end of the chain, and let it swing a little bit, just like a clapper in a bell. And when you do that, it will change the feeling through the whole body and feel that the whole body is involved in the walking. And that's really what we're looking for, is this whole body experience. And notice that if you let the knee be a little bit buoyant, it will swing the foot just fine. So you've got these long clapper legs, and as you release it, let the knee be a little bit buoyant and let the foot follow. So it's pretty much the polar opposite of just walking foot to foot, where everything that's happening is just down there. And instead, it's this whole release that plays out to the foot. Rather than the foot being the first thing that happens, it's the end of the chain. And it starts all the way up inside your torso. So just give yourself a chance to feel that. And now you want to see how it plays out in the form when we're stepping. That's a good place to start looking at it rather than trying to find it. It's in the leg that isn't stepping too, but let's start with the stepping foot. So let's do single whip, because that's the big step that we were just talking about, and it gives us some challenge in letting the foot be the end of the chain that the whole body is involved with. So just to go over it here, at this point, feel all the way up through your whole torso. And as you sit down to start the step, let the leg become buoyant. The knee becomes buoyant. And if you need to do a couple of these to get it there, that's okay. More important is to feel that the whole body is involved rather than just hauling it out there as a piece. So let's just do that a few times. And Lee will face a canonical direction, and I'll face so that I end up facing the camera. So you're in push, and begin. Turn. Now that whole leg is coming with you. Shift. That frees your left leg. As you extend your arm, it plays out. And now figure out how to get your leg to be light as it steps, and complete the move. And just do it again. Your legs are long. They're the long clappers in your bell. Now your left leg is light. The knee is buoyant. And just to get the Goldilocks, the feeling of doing it the other way, this time we'll do it, and I want you to just think about your legs only coming up to here, and your feet being the thing that you're moving. And go. So now you got these short legs. And you're going to step the foot where you need it to be. And now let's do it one more time with our nice, long, light, and agile legs. Your legs go all the way up. Your legs are light. The knees buoyant. And rest your leg. So with any luck, that felt different when you do it the two different ways. If it didn't, just explore this more. You know, this is an idea for you to take into your practice. You may not just get it like that, but this difference should feel different. Now, Jane used to talk about bypassing the hip completely, and part of that is if your legs start all the way up here, then you don't want to get caught in this place in the middle. Because if you think about your leg only moving from here, then it's a lot harder to actually bypass your hips. But if you can feel like the legs come up into your torso and are involved, that it involves your torso to take a step, then it's easier to bypass the hip and not get caught out in your hip. The feeling that your legs are light is also something to just kind of work toward. And I think just walking around is a really good way to try to feel that. And just let the knee be buoyant, let the leg be long. You know, when you take a step, when do you release the back leg? Do you make a decision, okay, now I'm going to put my other foot forward, now I'm going to put the other foot forward? Or do you let the body tell you how to walk and when it's time? And when you're on one leg that's right underneath you, the other leg can become long and be held in like the clapper feeling, and then when you release it, it's still long. So this is another way to get the experience of bypassing the hip completely and just letting the leg be long and find its own stride rather than you deciding when it's time to take the next step because you're thinking it, you know, oh, okay, got to get somewhere. And you're just sort of doing this and just putting one foot out in front of the other, as opposed to letting it take its time. And then the whole body gets involved and your legs feel lighter. Notice how if you just walk one foot in front of the other, it makes your legs kind of a little static and stuck and held. And you're in a hurry, but it's not moving through you. So let yourself feel like the leg is light when you step into one leg, the other one becomes light and it stays light as it steps. And you're always on top of the leg that's weighted rather than ending up out ahead of yourself. So this is a really great way to just start to feel like your legs are light and easily movable, which is what we're looking for. And you can play around all with this anytime. So let it come into your daily actions, your daily movements, wherever you're walking. And you don't have to do it slowly. You can do this quickly and have it go through the whole body, or do it quickly and have it just be shuffling your feet around. It should feel a lot nicer if you let your whole body be involved. So let's look at another first third, actually, because the whole first third is filled with opportunities to experience how your legs step. And once you get a feeling for how the legs step lightly and involving the whole body, it might become easier to see how even the leg that you're standing on and not stepping with is also involving the whole body. So another first third. So as you stand here, find your legs going all the way up into your torso. Your arms, of course, are still light and free moving, like we were doing on Tuesday. But now you're bringing your leg awareness too. And begin. Now you got these long legs. And light, buoyant knees. bypassing the hip and feeling the long leg, the buoyant knees, the agile stepping. So one aspect of having the legs be long and coming up into your torso and involving the whole body is in a 70-30 how you experience your back leg. So just take a 70-30, either one, and get yourself positioned and notice that you can think about your back leg. That's the one I want to look at. I think that's easier to feel. And you can feel it starting right here at the top of your femur. And then you can go through your hip and feel it coming all the way up into your torso. So see if you can get that sensation. Standing in your front leg and letting your rear leg come from all the way deep inside up like the clapper of your bell. And then you can this is part of having an agile and light mind, is how you think about experiencing your body. So feel this light, long leg that comes all the way up, and then feel it as a short, heavy thing that just starts right at the top of the femur. And then let it be long again. Feel it coming up through the whole body. And go ahead and change legs. Do it on the other side. So make sure that you're in a place where you can really stand on your front leg and let that be supporting you. And then get your back leg in a position where you can let it be long. Feel it coming all the way up through you. This is part of how the empty leg of a 70-30 can hang down toward the ground. This is the octopus tentacle concept that we talk about sometimes. It's hanging down to the coral sands below. It's attached way down deep. And it can do that because it's hanging like a clapper in the bell of your torso. And so try to feel that length, that lightness, the freedom of having the leg like that. And then once you've got that feeling, go ahead and change it and make it be something that just starts right here at the top of your leg, the top of your femur. And notice how that takes away some of the length and the lightness and the root as well. Now come back to the other feeling, which, by the way, will help you relax your lower back, because when you let your leg come up through your torso, it can help you not kink that spot in the back where you're just thinking about your leg being here. Let it come all the way up and free your lower back a little bit and let it really hang so that it's long and it's light. And the lower back can let go. The feet are like octopus tentacle suckers hanging all the way down to below the ground. The front leg is the one holding you up. The back leg is light. And then you can change that feeling again and notice what a difference it makes on the inside. Right away, I feel my lower back kink a little bit, whereas if I let it be long, it helps release the lower back as well. So rest your legs. And I think I'll turn it over to Lee now and see what he can bring to this idea.
Great, let's continue. So we're looking at this qingling notion, this light and free moving, light and agile. And the thing about that is that by being light and free moving, when you make a motion, the whole body participates in it. So, if you're a mobile and you're a well-balanced mobile, picture a mobile hanging here, and I come over and I touch one end of one of the pieces of the mobile, the whole mobile will go into motion. All of the pieces will start moving. And because and a mobile can be quite heavy. There's some famous mobiles by Calder, which are huge. They're made with giant steel girders. So they must weigh tons. But they still have that same quality, that just a light touch one place in the mobile will set all of the steel girders into motion. So even though, we have whatever the weight of our bodies are, if we can get this light and agile, light and free moving, qingling feeling in the body, then any motion that we make will cause the entire body to move. And so then how come that doesn't happen? And why don't we do that? And so there's basically two things that we do that keep that from happening. One of them is we move arbitrarily. We just move our hands. We're in cloud hands here, and we just change our hands. And nothing happened down in the bottom. We just move the hands. So moving arbitrarily, an empty gesture, a gesture without meaning, without being correlated to what's happening in the center, that's one of the things that'll keep this from happening. That's like if the mobile had motors on it and all of a sudden one of the motors ran and just moved one of the pieces of it while nothing else happened. The other thing that will keep this from happening is tightness, if we hold. So you hold someplace and then that motion can't actually make it all the way through the body. And so part of what Beth was talking about, where you're doing the stepping for a single whip and you come in here and you just move the foot, that is the arbitrary motion. And that's me moving the foot without anything happening in the center. What I want is that the leg is light and balanced, and then I make a change in the center, and the end result of that change is that the foot moves. But all along the way there, the whole leg has to be changing. Everything has to go as I get there. So the result, the foot moving or the hands going to a particular place, is the end of a whole process that plays out from the center to get there. And that'll only happen if I'm relaxed. If I'm balanced, the mobile has to be balanced. If it's not, if one big piece of the mobile comes down and hits the ground, well, then the whole thing isn't moving. It has to be balanced. You have to be relaxed. And you have to let the motions play out through the body. So I think that's what we're trying to get to. I want to do a little working in cloud hands. And then I think we'll do whole form, so you have a chance to watch all of this. So I'll face the camera, and Beth will face the same direction that you might be facing if you're looking at your screen. So we're in flying diagonal. I'll just run through it once. Turn, let the hands make a ball of air, and let the foot step. Shift, and the hands are switching. Turn to the front. Keep turning. The hands rotate. Step. Let the hands switch. Turn to the front. Keep turning. Step. Let the hands switch. Turn to the front. Keep turning. Step. Let the hands switch. Front. Keep turning. And then stop in the final posture. Okay, so since we were just working on the legs, let's take a look at the legs while we're doing this. So when you come right here at the very beginning, as you turn towards the right and you make the ball of air, pay attention to what happens to your back leg. This isn't just turning, moving the hands, right? That would just be an arbitrary gesture. The center turns, and as the center turns, that's going to turn the hands, and it's also going to lengthen the rear foot so that then you can release it, let the knee be buoyant, and it'll step the foot so the feet are parallel. And then the same thing is going to happen when we do one of the other steps. The leg that's empty feels lengthened. You release it, let the knee be buoyant, and let the foot step. So you're not trying to move your feet. And you see what happens when I move my feet. Nothing else changes in the body. Instead, I let something release. The knee is buoyant. The foot moves. I come through here. Do this with me. Let the leg lengthen. Release. The knee is buoyant. The foot moves. So this happens every time. Knee is buoyant, foot moves. Okay, so let's take it from flying diagonal again, so that I give you a chance to really feel this. And pay attention to the legs. So turn, feel what that does to your rear leg. And now release that leg, let the knee be buoyant, let the foot move. Shift and turn to the front. Okay, now turn, feel that lengthen the rear leg, the right leg. Release it, the right knee is buoyant, the foot moves. Final posture. Turn, lengthening the left leg. Release it, the knee is buoyant. The foot step is the end of the process, not the thing you're doing. What you're doing is letting the center go, let the knee float, and the foot will step. Once more. Left leg is lengthened, release it, left knee buoys, foot steps. So even in something like that, which is, a much smaller step than single whip or embrace tiger or any of those big steps, you've got the same dynamic that Beth was talking about happening in the legs. Then with this we looked at arbitrary movement of the legs. The same thing happens in the hands. When I come through here, I want to turn my waist, and that needs to make both hands turn. So the hands not only move, the bottom hand moves a lot, but the hands turn. And so it's easy for that to become, you put the hands in place, and then you turn the hands. And then, when I release, that needs to affect the hands right away. So as the foot is stepping, the hands need to change. It's very easy to hold on to the hands, place the foot, and then move the hands. And that will lead both to holding, where the motion can't play out through the body, and arbitrary movement because your hands didn't change to where they needed to be for the next step, so you'll just put them there. So do this with me again, and this time we'll pay attention to the hands. So flying diagonal, turn. As you're turning, both hands are changing. The rear foot is stretched, and now release that rear foot and watch that your hands changed. Continue shifting. As you turn to the front, have that change the bottom hand, so the two hands are now palms facing the body, vertical. Turn. This turn needs to rotate the top hand. It also lengthens your right leg. Release it. Both hands should change. Continue. Come to the front. Turn. Rotates the hands. Release. The hands should change. Shift. As you come to the front, watch that your bottom hand is turning. Turn. Both hands rotate. Release the leg. That should change the hands. Come to the front. Once more. Turn. Both hands turn. Release. The hands need to move. Come to the front. Take a break. So, what we're working on here is definitely at a more advanced level than we would be working if we were just teaching you to move for the first time. So if you're watching this video and you're just getting your arms wrapped around cloud hands, great. File this stuff away. Jane used to say, I'm working on an advanced concept in this class, but I think that's valuable for everybody, even bare beginners, because you can start to get a new feeling for Tai Chi. And if you're a beginner and you're just working on this and it's not really making sense to you, file it away. Remember it for later. Some people have much more tiered approaches to their teaching, where there's stuff where they'll teach beginners and they won't even talk about other stuff. And then there's another layer that they'll teach and they won't talk about the stuff that's advanced beyond that. The way we were taught is that it's all there. You see the full continuum of it, and it's your job as the responsible student to understand where in that continuum you're working. And to remember and put an asterisk on and file away the stuff that you can't quite get a handle on, because that will become useful to you in 6 months or a year or 6 years. So remember all of this stuff. Let the more advanced notions percolate and influence what you're doing. And don't worry if the level you're working on is not actually engaging with all of what we're talking about. Try to get what you can out of this. And the reason I say this is because when we teach cloud hands, we frequently teach it to you more broken up. We have you move your foot. We have you shift and the hands change. We have you turn. We have you turn. We have you move your foot. We have you shift and the hands change. And then you turn. And watch when I do that, what's happening. When I get to this point, the foot is moving and the rest of the body didn't change. And now I'm moving the hands and I come to the front. I turn. When I turned, I probably didn't really feel anything happen in that leg. Now I move that leg, then I shift, the hands moved, I turn to the front. And part of why we do that is to make it real clear to you what are the points you need to go through. Because if we don't do that, people are shifted right away, then they have to move their hands, then they do something. They come through here and they're shifted right away. And we want you to have a clear step, then a shifting, then a turning. More turn, a clear step, then a shifting, then a turning. And we're trying to get those pieces of that clear to you. But the downside of that approach, the approach we use, is that it can lead to holding. You can break them up. Oh, okay, I'm supposed to step. Well, that just moves my foot. And it doesn't move my hands. And when I do that step, I'm doing what Beth was talking about, I'm moving the foot. I'm not having a step that goes through the body and ends up moving the foot. And when I have a step that goes through the body and ends up moving the foot, of course it's going to change the hands too. Not a lot, right? My hands didn't go all the way. That would be an arbitrary movement. But they start to move. And then they continue. So let's do cloud hands again. And I want you to really look for these changes going through the whole body and set warning sirens off whenever you find yourself holding or whenever you find yourself moving arbitrarily without it being the result of a central motion. So, from flying diagonal, the waist turns, moves the hands and the foot, and the hands move as the foot moves. Shifting and turning. Continue to turn. Release. The foot moves, so do the hands. To the front, to the side. Release. The foot moves, so do the hands. Front. Continue turning. Release the foot moves, so do the hands. And the motion of the foot is a release and a buoyant knee. Hold it here for a second. See if you can feel the difference between the two legs. You're standing on the left leg. The right leg, like the back leg of a 70-30, is long from the center of the body all the way down to the foot, not just from the hip. Great. So, if you're looking for the two errors, that if you can eliminate those, it'll bring you back to this light and lively. One of the things to do is to look for really little places where you hold. So I want to do rollback for a second. And in rollback, we spent time on rollback on Tuesday, looking at how the hands make little changes. As I first go into rollback, both of the hands changed, right? See, my palm is no longer facing to my body. When I started and wore it off, my palm was facing my body. If it didn't change, my palm would still be facing my body. So the right hand has to open out, so the palm isn't facing the body. The left hand comes in by the wrist. As I sit back, both hands are changing. At this point, my right hand is in front of my right shoulder. As I turn, the right hand moves a little bit. Now it's in front of my center line rather than being over there at the shoulder. As I come back towards the front, both hands are rotating and I come into press. Right? So we spent time on that on Tuesday. If that quick little recap wasn't enough for you to remember what happened on Tuesday, or if you didn't watch the Tuesday video, go back and work with that one because we'll have all that stuff. What I want to pay attention to is the legs this time. And it's very easy for the legs to become held. We're doing all this stuff with the arms, and so we forget about the legs. And so I want you to see the changes in the legs that happen as you go through there. So do from ward off right into press via rollback with me a couple times. Sink into the front leg. Both legs should change. Sit back. All your weight's in the left leg. Now pay special attention to the right leg as you turn. As you turn, feel that the right leg, the right hip is opening, and come back towards the front. Feel that the right hip is being drawn back, and shift into press. Do it again. Pay attention to the changes in the legs. Sinking into the front leg, sitting back, turning, right leg still changes. Swinging the arms, you'll really feel it in the right leg. Coming back towards the front, and press. And once more. Turn, sit back, turn, arms swing, come back towards the front, the legs are changing, and press. So this is smaller changes than for a big step, right? When we're stepping for cloud hands or we're stepping going into single whip, there's a lot more going on. And so it's easy for the legs to become kind of static, like posts holding up a table and your body's on top of the table, and that's where all the action is going, and the posts holding the table up aren't changing. So we want to break through that table. We want to have the whole body participate in the motions. And so as you're doing this, as you go into the front leg, the rear hip is coming forward and the rear leg is lengthening. As I sit back, now when I move away from the front leg, the hip doesn't stay static. If the hip stayed static, the whole leg would come with me, right? And see what happened to the knee there. That's trouble, because now when I go into my 70-30, the knee's in the wrong place. So as I sit back and turn, I need to be moving away from the front leg. And so you'll feel the front hip joint opening. And then as you come back towards the front, as I'm folding the hands, the front hip joint is going to come back in. So you're going to feel that. It's going to move. It's going to move as I'm bringing the hands back together. And then everything can come forward. So you'll have both legs are engaged all the way through there. So let's do roll back another time for you to feel that change happening in the legs. So go ahead, into the front leg, rear leg lengthens. Sitting back, turn, feel the right hip joint opening, swinging the arms. As you come back towards the front, the right hip joint moves back, and then you shift into press. Reset, and go. Roll back, paying attention to the legs, and press. Once more, ward off right, down into the front leg, rear leg lengthens. Sitting back, feel both legs change, that's pretty obvious. Turn, right hip joint is opening. Swing the arms, right hip joint more open. Come back towards the front, right hip joint moves back, and press. So I find looking at these small changes really useful because it's the small changes where I'm likely to hold or make an arbitrary movement. So I gave some of you homework a couple weeks ago about the breathing to notice if you start the form on an in-breath or an out-breath. Here's another little bit of homework for you. And the homework is to pick some piece of the form, the first third, a single move, and look at all of the changes that are happening and figure out how do you have every single one of those changes corresponding to a change in the center. And so a really simple one is making the hook. When I come into single whip here, and I'm going to gather the hook, what happens? Do I turn and then make a hook? That drawing of the fingers together was just making the hook. So that's an arbitrary gesture. That's empty. That's not qingling, light and free moving. So what you need to figure out is how does even a simple thing like drawing the fingers together, how is that the fingers participating in the motion of the whole body, which is happening in the center? So spend some time going through your form, looking for the little changes, the palm turning up or turning down, cloud hands, the palms turning. Little changes, the fingers drawing together. Little changes, squeezing the fist as you go into step, parry, and punch. Look for those little changes and figure out how you can make those happen from the center. And then the flip side is look for the places that you hold. Look for the places where you do something and the rest of the body didn't change. So that'll tell you there's holding. And the two things that keep you from being able to be qingling, light and free moving, light and agile are holding and arbitrary movements. So if we can start to eliminate those, then we start to be able to do qingling. So let's do a whole form, and we'll go at a decent clip as we go through this. And what I want you to pay attention to is any place in the whole form where you find yourself either doing arbitrary movement or holding. And go ahead, everything changing. As you step, everything changes. Both arms, both legs. Right leg is changing. How do you make that hook? Bottom arm changes. Whole body participates in every motion. The legs are light. You step through the whole long leg, not just the foot. Lying diagonal. Everything changes. How do you rotate the hands? Is there any holding? Step forward this time. Really easy to hold during the kicks. So let yourself fall over in the interests of not holding. Whole body participates in the movements. one gesture that steps the foot and changes the rest of the body. Without holding. So, light and free moving. First line of the Tai Chi Chuan Classic is, in every motion, the entire body must be qingling, light and free moving. And further on it says, so light and free moving, so qingling, that if a fly alights, it will set you in motion. If a feather lands on you, you will feel its weight. So we're really trying to get that freedom, that ability to move. This requires all the other skills. So all the work we do with holding postures, all the work we do with separating the weight, all the work we do with the precision of moves, that sets the stage for letting yourself become light and free moving. So go forth, see where you're holding, see where you do arbitrary movement, and in order to resolve those, relax.